Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast, Season 3, Episode 10. I've realized I forgot to put the new overlay over, but I'll do that in a moment.
It's fine. It's all gone well. Nothing has gone wrong in preparing for this episode. It's gone perfectly
I have also
fine.
forgotten to change over because I have the man in the middle. Yes, I always do this. Initialise. So hello, mate. How are you?
Stuck in the middle with me, and other badly
Hot.
translated song lyrics. But yes, I'm doing pretty well. I am managing to just about keep my head above water. I had a day off yesterday, which I honestly needed very, very much because there was lots of flat moving and visa stuff and EU masters and tech issues, and everything seemed to happen pretty much at once, which was an experience for all involved. But I'm on the other side, and we're done pretty well at this point. I'm feeling okay, set up, working, thriving, in my lane, moisturized. I'm just hoping the internet decides not to fully Berlin while I'm in the middle of this podcast. That's the one.
That's actually a verb now. Yeah, for those of you that
to
aren't
Berlin,
aware,
yes.
Berlining and internet is actually it's actually.
Berlining and internet. Maybe he'll be fine. Hopefully, both of you will be. Because
It'll be fine.
Or at that moment in time, it just becomes me monologuing about the LJL, which I mean, I'm fine to do. I've got a YouTube channel I occasionally do that on, but I'm not Jat, so I don't have a whole experience based around it. Person though who has much experience. It's Nymaera, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, mate. How are
me.
you?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi. It's good to be back for another LJL podcast, and yeah, I mean we've been pretty busy, have Sam and I recently. Also, I think currently wait, have we switched over to that scene? Because I see the scene you've got on the OBS, Lexi, and I'm currently Initialise on it. So
yeah,
just saying, there's some Wordle shit going on here. Anyway,
we are brothers.
Yeah, I mean,
we are brothers.
So yeah,
hi,
I've been enjoying
I'm
the
an
break,
LEC
I suppose,
analyst.
from a little bit of the work which I've been doing. I'm still working quite a lot. In fact, there was you know what? I actually might want to derail things right off the bat because this is a really interesting topic we can talk about because this applies to all of us. So this applies to all of us. Also because I saw some people liking the tweet and I'm like, I wonder if they'd be interested in this topic themselves. So there was a topic which happened on kind of Twitter today, but one that's kind of been going on for a while in terms of like, how much work is it healthy to do for a freelancer kind of trying to make it in the scene? And I was just saying, I've really been enjoying the break from actually, have I been having a break? Kind of, yes. But for most of this split, effectively, I've been working for 7 days a week on broadcast or planning for broadcast. And I know that each of us has been doing an incredible amount of work recently for everything, actually. Most of what happened, and we've wrapped up the split now. But Lexi, this split has done pretty much every role it's possible. Producer, colorcaster, host, play-by-play, analyst desk. You've done pretty much everything, including
social media
stuff, all of that, the admin shit too. So I was just thinking, like, in terms of, what is the cost of trying to make it in our little corner of the world? Because that's something which I've been thinking of a little bit recently. And obviously, I've been enjoying a lot of my successes recently, but we've all worked very, very hard at this stuff. And I was like, I've been enjoying the break. And it's been the first time I've had a break in a while. So I was just like, just wondering if that's anything which you two empathize with currently.
Yeah, as someone that you go Sam first. You go Sam first because you share a lot more directly with this.
Okay, so there is something to, and I'll put this out, there is something to putting the grind in when it's going somewhere. The point is, that at some point the grind has to stop. You have to actually get to a point where you don't have to grind is the aim. And the point that there is a problem, particularly when you are a freelancer and things aren't as, I mean, this is true actually if you're in contracts, one has to do a lot of extra stuff around it that's not in overtime. Or exactly, you're not getting overtime for, right? Where you need to know when the point is to say enough is enough. And these are the boundaries where actually I am overstepping to the point where I am devaluing both my time and burning myself out, so
lowering the
quality of my time
is
super, exactly, and which is not acceptable. And the problem is, like, particularly when a freelancer and you, if you're establishing yourself, there does come there's a point in the middle, we'll call it, where you are getting jobs, and they're good jobs, but if you were to not take those jobs, would you be offered them again, having not taken them in the first place? And it is very difficult to gauge when you've gotten over that hump. And part of that's just social skills in terms of keeping up good relations and good rapport with the people who would offer you said jobs, and making sure they understand this is just, it's not going to happen every time. But another part of it is just trying to gauge when you can actually start saying no to jobs and knowing there'll be more to come afterwards. And that is a difficult thing to gauge. And I think for myself and Alex, less so, I think, probably for Al at this point, because he's done a really incredible job over the last year and a half or so to really get himself into a good position. But he's had to grind his ass off working 6-7 days a week for a year and a half straight.
Right? So kind of, again, just like cap off just one little bit more on my side, and then, just gonna let the topic go for itself. I mean, I was initially for the LEC planned to be on for 3 weeks this spring. I ended up being on 6. Now, my initial plan was NLC, and I'll just take a break from NLC when I've got my LAC weeks, or I'll cut one of the days off in those weeks, right? I'll kind of balance things out. That ended up being not the case, and that meant that effectively I was doing 7-day work for a month and a half, and you only have one chance to make a first impression. So I was very, very conscious of that in terms of doing that, and actually, in terms of like the people involved with actually scheduling me were very forward about saying, only take this if you feel you can. Don't feel forced to take this. And I appreciate that a lot. So it's not necessarily pressure from the individuals involved. It's pressure from the industry and my position within it, really. That was really what happened. And so that's kind of the perspective I've had in this split in terms of like, how much work was good. And there were points where I was considering not taking certain days and whatever. I think I found pretty much the edge of what I could do, and a lot of that was actually based off of just like physical well-being, because I used to I suffered a lot from migraines kind of growing up, right? So I'd have a migraine about once every couple of months from like the age of 14 onwards, and I've just kind of lived with that. Come this year, and after this work streak, because of the stress of moving, blah blah blah, I've been having a migraine every show day. And that's when I was like, this is actively affecting my work now. I can take painkillers, I can deal with it, I can manage it, it's good, but I could be doing better without it. Even if it's just like an extra 10%, extra 15% or whatever. But that's a significant amount at this level, right? I know I can put that towards it, but I'm sat there like, fuck, I'm actually devaluing what I'm doing now if I do too much.
Also, you don't want to have to be like forced onto medication if you can help it to just manage to manage working.
Day
that
to day,
shouldn't be where you're at. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And part of that sort of things like sleep schedules and like actually
stress of moving,
coming out from the end of COVID and still being not quite up in terms of like healthiness and all the rest of it. So a lot of it's like actually, honestly, migraines often things like vitamin D deficiency, that kind of thing. We've been trying to
that helped
so
actually
stuck
when
inside
I remembered to start taking supplements
because you're stuck inside for 6 months, and actually you come out the other end of that 6 months and your body's not caught up.
Yeah, but no, Lexi, from your perspective of kind of like working a hell of a lot this split on the LJL.
Oh god,
what's
the LJL producer bar none.
Director extraordinaire Jax. If only I had a real weapon. God, that felt like me with production sometimes, with my poor computer of like 6+ years old. Honestly, you don't need fancy tech nowadays, which is what this has told me. And the fact is, the industry in general throws far too much money at things they don't really understand. But that's just a blanket statement of somebody who has done a lot with fucking nothing.
So what he's saying is that if you want to have an efficient, well-oiled machine broadcast, he'll do it.
He'll do it.
Hire this man.
Just pay me. I'll be interested. So I've got an interesting perspective because
I was going to point Lexi.
The three of us started doing all of our grind at the same time, basically.
Yeah.
Like it was days apart, weeks apart, if at most, absolute most. I'm thinking like I got a bit of Newcasting before the two of you, but that was Magic the Gathering, so it was a bit different, a little bit different. One's part cardboard.
And we did like a practice cast in December 2019.
That's it. Yes.
That was it. Yeah.
I remember like literally doing that with you guys. Oh, anyway.
So the VODs of like 4 out of the 5 games are there. The first one Sam and I did on the sofa, so it wasn't recorded.
That's right.
We just watched it on the TV. Yeah. It's not anywhere. It's not recorded.
Grief.
There you go.
So I due to my own personal life, I basically took about 6 to 8 months off. I didn't want to. It was just kind of nature of the beast and the situation.
Yes.
It has been tremendously difficult to come in at the trajectory I was at previously. If anything, I am still not where I was when I got off this boat about a year and a half ago, which is saying something considering the LJLOU is now, in my opinion, the best fan-run broadcast with Riot's own fucking seal of approval. I'm sorry, they did a player highlight on Kinatsu. They used our footage. I'm gonna just say that hot take, and that's also because I think we put on the best fucking show without any Riot support. So
yeah, take pride in our work and all that stuff.
Hell yeah, I do, and I think the LJLOU is honestly our semi-finals and finals and everything. I thought we killed it. I thought we did really good throughout most of the playoffs. You want to break into this scene though? You got to do at least 2 years of free work.
Yep.
And
or basically free work, because the pay
you either
is,
have to work in a society
it's
and
like
be
a nod of the hat, and that's
president.
it.
Yeah, you have to like find lots of avenues to do a lot of free work, and the chances of you, especially if you want to be a talent. By the way, this is extremely important. If you want to be talent, it's a numbers game, like a lot of creative industries. There are only so many people that can take so many roles, and
often it goes to the people who are the most visible and have the most momentum at that time too, which is something that we were all quite.
Twitter follow account is a real thing.
Yeah, and I think that we're all quite aware of that.
Oh yeah,
we were all pretty aware of that when we started. So I mean, so I know from my numbers, and you guys won't be far off this because you guys are doing about the same as I was as well. In the first year and a half, 2 years that I was casting, I averaged a cast a day. I cast a game a day over my first 2 years. So that's 700 odd games. Actually, since I've gone, full time since last September, which is when I kind of took some stuff off, I still have cast a lot, but most of my work has actually been off stage at that point. It's not actually been casting. So I've actually cast less, but I've kind of been working more. But either way, you understand you need to do a hell of a lot to build momentum and to build your skills and hone your craft.
Yep. And it is something that, depending on how these next few weeks or months go for me, I will attack my personal projects alongside the LJLOU with some serious tack and planning, because that has to be. And that's where it is. But that, ladies and gentlemen, was a
tangent.
quick introduction onto maybe a future podcast that the three of us might just start doing one day that we keep talking about. But
we've always talked about the fucking thing.
Who knows? But episode 10. Initialise, you got any last points you want to make on that topic as well? I kind of cut you off at the end there.
Honestly, probably not bad timing because my internet at the time was about to die. So you picked the right moment. You planned around the Berlin internet spikes perfectly. I think that probably hit most of the major points. I think we're in danger of derailing too far.
We are. I would agree.
I think that covered most of the stuff there. It is a very difficult balance to be struck between grinding and learning when not to grind, I think is what we're getting at. And it ain't easy. Being cheesy?
That's the one.
I was going to come up with something like that. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, no, it's not. My solid half of my casting is random cheese puns. So
yeah, it is actually. But that's a skill.
I'm quite good at.
You've acquired. It's or you had it already.
That's true. I made a cheese pun right there, and no one actually noticed. It's great. It's great. You have to go back and listen.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to bring us back on topic because if I let Initialise go any further, he will continue going for till I have actually fallen asleep. Which is great if you want to have an audiobook, by the way. One day maybe Sam can narrate some audio.
I'll sort you out.
Could it be like a brief
Chapter 1
of cheese
puns? The LJLOU podcast begins.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, this is our DFM expectation episode. Believe it or not,
DFM.
Okay. Yeah, woo! So we're going to be discussing, gushing, and kind of talking about each of the players, DFM as a whole, and everything else. We also, in this episode, going to be kind of talking around what the tier-based system and kind of MSI in general, and kind of our hopes going into MSI, and also to begin us out, we're going to be starting with our personal LJL overall MVP for the whole of the 2022 spring split. Now how we've got this is the three of us were kind of talking about how we want to do it on air and then off air, and then we weren't sure what we're going to do. We've each got a few players that obviously we want to talk about. And as such, we're going to kind of just talk about each of the players in question, and we're going to just try and figure out who we want to actually say is our overall MVP. Because I think it's fair to say most players that we're going to be talking about here are probably from the top 3 teams, which would also basically mean most of our top 3 all-pro teams. So it's not like any players here are going to be particularly surprising, considering this is going to be the overall MVP.
I think everyone is in top 3 teams for me, actually. I just had a quick check over, but
yeah. Well, all of them are for me. I did have to double check number 3 because I had to make sure that like all team pro, third pro, did have one of my MVPs, which I'm always biased towards. But I mean, I'm going to begin it off with that, lads. I still think Honey is so fucking good at this video game, lads. Like, I'm sorry.
He is quite good.
he is.
He is quite good. And I think as well, before, like, to clarify as well, I vote differently for all pro than I do for MVP.
Yes.
Because I know some people will disagree with this. So I know, for example, someone like Thorin tends to take it on pure skill a lot of the time. I think there's a bit more nuance to that. But like, there are other people who very much do it more my way, which is effective. And I think Medics more in my tends to go.
No, but like I think it's just important.
In terms
regardless of the way that you do it, you just stick to the same logic, right? You have to be consistent and use the same logic. That's the important bit.
So to clarify my logic, it's more the fact that for MVP, value doesn't always equate to the most skilled, because you can be slightly less skilled, but way more valuable to the way your team succeeds. And as a result, you will therefore get MVP because your value to your team is higher as a result. If you're in a team of superstars, really good, your value potentially drops down a little.
Okay, so a really good example of this is like if you were kind of to constrain MVP to top lane and we just kind of say these are just the top laners, right? And you look back to say, so obviously the split which we remember really fondly would have been like 2020, just that season, right? And you think if you take someone like Apperman out of 2020, awesome player, really top 2, but you could only really play Mordekaiser, Aatrox, Renekton. Those are the 3 champions you could play. You put him up against someone like Ebby, who has a wider champion pool, even then he was a bit constrained back then. But you had a couple of players who could only do who were very good on specific champions of specific playstyles. You could say that they were. It's like there's something to say about like they're very constrained in the way that they play. They're not as skilled as someone who can play to a high level all the styles that top lane has in the meta and XYZ. Which is why for me, Ebby is a more skilled player than Apperman. However, because the way that Apperman played, you could argue that Apperman was more valuable to his team because the team enabled that one style and he just popped off on that. VTO is a really good example from the current LEC split, right? Where he is a very selfish player in terms of he plays towards himself as on a personal advantages, even though he might not be as good at the facilitating styles, which is why I think that there are other mid laners who are better than VTO, but VTO is more valuable to his team. There's a lot of different caveats, it's a very interesting in-depth conversation.
With that in mind, Honey is incredibly valuable. Guy basically gave Sengoku a win condition in so many games. That series versus Rascal Jesters
and DFM.
Oh, was like Honey really trying. Again, I actually interestingly, I actually think that he got put behind in lane a couple of times, pretty significantly against Sol and Udapon a fair amount of times. I mean, but he was always coming back and finding ways to be incredibly finding value in the team fights in incredible ways. And like even through the regular split, like he was like a guaranteed win condition almost, which is really hard to do. And like, yes, that's part of the way Sengoku played, but Honey lived up to those expectations phenomenally. And I think he's a very valid MVP consideration and candidate.
Yeah, okay. I love Honey. The fact that I also want to appreciate about Honey is we saw a one-dimensional playstyle out of him in Axis, and we actually started to see a bit more of an evolution, kind of the next stage of where Honey could be as a player. It's not there yet. I'm not going to pretend it's actually
he's still
there.
Playing the hyper carries, give me the gold champions.
He is.
Luckily, the meta allowed him to do that this split. Like
it did. So it wasn't. It's not something you can really call him out on because that's what everybody was doing. Yeah. So like like.
Yeah, if it got to the point where you have to play Ashe, Varus, Ezreal, I mean, his Ezreal's really good, but like if you go towards like the more utility AD carries, we'll see what happens to Honey. We'll see.
He's just gonna play Jinx, mate. He's just gonna brute
Samira
force it like he did with Axe.
Probably
Samira. He would play
Samira's
that.
so
like
good though.
She's very shit with the new build. With the new build, she's quite strong.
Oh
the
yeah.
Edge
So
second with the
someone
double crit cloak is
there was an analyst asking for like some feedback on a build on Samira. It's apparently really good. You go mythic into Infedge for 2 crit cloaks to get like the Infedge like it's 2.5 items, and you just like shit out damage. I've not ended up seeing it in any scrims or anything kind of like by pro players yet, but just keep an eye out. It's fun.
Yeah, it's something. Yes.
Give me the next MVP candidate to throw out there.
Okay,
Name into the hat.
I think there are a few other ones. I'll call this one out because I think
I'm sure we
probably
could gush
my
about all
front
the
runner.
players.
Ebby's the guy I'm going to throw out because I think he has been
big hitter. Okay.
Like because and I want to clarify because I literally had this whole thing about saying, oh, you know, sometimes like actually you can be the best player, but maybe not the most valuable team. For me, I think Ebby's hit both stands where he's actually been the best damn top laner, and he's probably been the most valuable player on his team for how DFM has succeeded. Ebby's just been really fucking good.
He's absurd.
I legit think he 1v1 Summit. He lost to Summit, and instead of Summit, who mental fucking boomed. Yes, I'll look at the camera for that. You know what the fuck I'm talking about, Summit. I cheered for you, man.
So am I. I'm a bit upset.
I lost a bet with my missus because of you. But Ebby fucking took those L's because he lost against Summit. Let's not pretend it. He L'd. He took those L's. And he turned them into W's, man. He's fucking winning, man. He's so good.
Wait,
so
when did he play
versatile.
against Summit? When did he play against
Summit? So it's DFM definitely did scrims against LS's Cloud9.
I actually didn't realize that.
That probably explains why
LS
was
on
stream.
Oh, you're right. No, I do remember it now. I do remember because
they played against Japanese teams.
I was wondering if I was crossing wires because around Worlds last year it was Ebby versus Someday, and there was a really emotive moment, really emotional moment because Ebby, the first pro player that he ever played against in Korean solo queue was Someday, and Someday handed his ass to him and completely smacked him. So when it came to Worlds, when he could play against Someday, it was like, I really want to beat Someday. And he was like, I really want to play against Someday. And it was really cool. So I was just wondering, hang on, maybe it's just like the other superstar Korean top lane. Oh, there's Impact as well. Like, yeah, that one in NA currently. And yeah, that was a really cool moment. So I was wondering if it's that. But no, I didn't realize about the Summit Scrim thing. That's really cool.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, Ebby is probably one of the best top laners in a minor region, full stop.
I'd say he's the best minor region top player. Yeah.
I don't watch BCS enough to know. I mean,
he's right up there for being potentially the best minor region player out there. I mean, of course,
hang on.
Just to minor region, yes, absolutely. No, I will actually back you.
Yeah. So when it comes to like the minor region thing, PCS and VCS, I don't necessarily consider them a minor region because they have 2 seeds at Worlds. However, what I'll say is that.
Right.
I think Ebby is. I think the people who could contest from VCS, PCS are obviously like Kiaya and Hanabi. I think those are the two like other top laners. But I think when Ebby can pull off what he did internationally last year, I think he's very much based off
he can
recent
fight
international performance. I think that Ebby is currently top of the tree out of those 3. But I mean, when it comes to the next, because obviously Hanabi just qualified. Sadly,
I'm sure
Kiaya won't be there
because
he's on GARM and GARM are going to the Asian
well,
Games, so GARM won't be there. But you're gonna have Hanabi and Ebby at that MSI, so we get to see potentially them kind of battle it out for best minor region top laner if you consider VCS and PCS minor regions.
Not major region. There you go. He's right up there.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm just excited that we got Corporal back. We've got 4 Japanese
players.
We've got 3.
So
we've actually got 3 Japanese players going to MSI and not all on DFM. And if Danny goes, remember, if EG go, we actually have another Japanese.
He's a Japanese speaker, yeah. He plays League in Japanese. He has his client in Japanese. Oh, I saw a screen cap of him doing that recently. I don't know whether he has it all the time. But
I don't know what his nationality is, but I know he speaks it, right? So.
But anyway, MVP debate. So we've had Honey. Ebby, do you want to continue? I mean, Ebby, look, he's great. He's awesome. He has like more solo kills than like the next 2 or 3 people combined this
He
split.
had the most solo kills in both the regular season and in playoffs. And
Yep.
he
Yeah,
played
was like
less games of
26
playoffs than almost
pre-playoffs.
anybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty nuts. Throw another name out there, Alex.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you two somehow did not mention Jet.
I
How-
knew that was coming. He was.
How did you
he's
mention
so
Jet?
good.
I mentioned the other Sengoku carry.
Yeah, no, I think it's, and this is the thing, right? Like, in some ways, Jet is kind of like some of his impact is like muted because Honey's on the team, but oh my god, he was so good in the finals,
Yes.
and in the semifinals, right? I think that in the
Yes.
Juggernaut match, Jet
Oh, he was
had
critical.
in the Juggernaut match. You know, he didn't have maybe as good individual performance, but he had, you know, he's solo killing in lane. He was winning laning phases versus Yaharong, but he really couldn't translate that into mid-game huge snowball wins. In the semifinal and then the final, he absolutely did. And in the final, when he was on LeBlanc, like Yaharong just couldn't stand in lane versus him. You know, he was playing Ryze versus LeBlanc, and he was like missing, or rather, like Jet was dodging 2 out of the 3 Qs or whatever, the Ryze combo and hitting the chains. It's like, okay, this guy's really good. And then he'd snowball the game pretty much through under his own weight as well. I think it was really impressive how Jet just can like individually manage to take over a game.
I want to remind everybody that, remember, Jet was playing from Korea, so we don't know for sure that Arya wasn't playing the LeBlanc.
Yeah.
There we go. That makes no. But seriously, if you said that was Arya, I would believe you, because it was that clean sometimes, and that's the only other kind of player that has played to that kind of level. Yaharong has also hit that peak, by the way. I don't want to kind of throw Yaharong under the bus.
We've got some good mid laners. Jet's just really good.
He was an all-pro. He took away Yaharong's spot from the DFM almost supremacy.
And I think that's almost that's you know, and that's so valuable in its own right? And I think like the reason, in terms of like bringing it down to like the value, right? Because it's not necessarily just about the skill level and stuff, but like what made him so valuable. No one else could lane as well as him and create pressure from an individual lane state as well as Jet. You know, Jet was managing his waves really well to get first roam timings in very early plays. That's an individual effort that he was doing at that point, and then combining with the rest of the team. And while I do think that, you know, I think that over the course of the entire splits, maybe Jet didn't have all of the same performances that some players did, but even then he had some huge pop performances. Remember his Echo coming out, his Silas, you know, they became permanent bans against him as the season went on. You know, I think that in terms of the big game moments, I think in terms of like the biggest of big games, there's a high proportion of them going towards Jet than anyone else in the league.
He was so good.
He was really good. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to take it over.
Go on.
To another DFM player.
Okay.
Yes.
But I have to call them out. Because Steel, quite frankly, might have mind-controlled teams at moments. This man, when it comes to value, because I want to use the value proposition here.
Yeah.
This man knew every jungler's pathing off of one ward. He was doing things that he's doing things that major region junglers, like top junglers, sometimes fuck up. And he was so consistent. Like, you can give Steel legit a slow clear champion, which was Poppy, not anymore. Fucking 12.8 came in, so Steel's fucking happy as Larry.
Steel is very pleased going into this FSI.
That's an insta must ban. By the way, I think it might be a must ban on the whole patch anyway for every team.
Yeah, it looks very strong.
I think if a team is a Poppy team, then you have to ban it.
Ban it.
I think it fucks with too many good meta junglers right now. You can't
die. But the point that
play
the point
it 3
click
roles.
R being up 0.5 seconds, the ult being buffed, the W being buffed. There's just a lot of very strong Poppy buffs.
But Steel, what he also offers is he's not just a jungler. He's like, I can track this guy. I'll play Poppy and I'll do this. Oh, motherfucker, he can still carry. He can still do so many things. And
Diana,
what he offers
Italy,
is the
they're
dual
all there.
nationality. He can talk both Japanese and Korean, so he can get nuance if he needs it. He doesn't need it a lot of the time, because, by the way, Harp and Yaharong, very good in Japanese, we've been told, like by very good sources. But he can still do that. And we know they've done that in the past. He might have had, like, what's crazy is if Ebby hadn't had the split he had, I might have said Steel had the best split of his career, but Ebby Ebby did dirty things to people in top lane. So I'm kind of like
Yeah, I
pulled
mean,
in two directions.
no, I would agree. I'd agree that Steele actually had the best split of his career as well.
He's been very good.
Yeah,
I
I think
guess,
that.
yeah.
I think there's probably one back when he first started in DFM where he was really just phenomenal as well.
Okay, but in terms of like
that's a long
overall
time
level,
ago.
right? I think he's better than he's ever been. And I think like sometimes you say like, oh, you know, the level of player. And so I mean, this is a wider conversation, right? Again, not to water down the two because we're on the MVP topic right now, but to add context to it. And this will feed into our later conversation as well because we want to set up some expectations for MSI and all the rest of it. But I think that the LJL is currently at a better level than it has ever been. I think that the LJL has never seen this consistently high level of play, particularly when we have 3 top teams where I think Sengoku and Rascal Jester could duke it out with the top minor region teams. I think, you know, if you sent them into the, you know, the regular stage, the group stage of MSI, they would do as well as your OCs and your CBLOLs and your TCLs. I think they would combat them, right? And you would have a reasonable percentage against them, maybe better, maybe worse, but kind of in the same kind of pool. I think DFM is above both. Well, I mean, they fucking won. So, I mean, but DFM are above the both of them. And I think they're looking to push beyond that and maybe go into, we'll talk about that, whatever. But like, when was the last time we had 3 teams you could send in internationally and go, you know what, that'd be okay? Never, I would say, for the LGL. And I think that because of that, amongst other things, the LGL is at its best international level it's ever been in terms of overall skill level. And then you pull that back into these players have had the best splits ever.
Great stuff. Yeah, I like Steel. Should we do, how many more names do we want in that hat? I've got like 2 more I think might be worth adding.
Let's start going. Right, you give me another
Sure, whatever.
name.
Let's just throw out some names.
I think Udapon's worth putting in there as well.
I was gonna, yeah.
Because I think this is a guy who was where Honey has been incredibly valuable in terms of purely for Sengoku. He's been so damn good for Sengoku and been such a good player on that front in terms of just like being a consistent win condition. Udapon's ability to play hard carry smash lane, get no attention but turn up to team fights and be good, play utility on like, you know, lethality people with Umbral Glaive, play weak side on Ezreal with no attention at all, or roll swap top because your top laner is sick and play some okay games up there as well. Like the guy's played Zeri and Dove Towers. He's played Jinx and Smash Lane on that one. He's played Caitlyn Lux, hard aggression. He's played Ezreal. Like there are so many playstyles that he's played to an incredibly high level and looked really good on most of them. And not even just one single role. Like the fact he's roll swapped top to look okay. Like
we're good.
That's worthy of put into an MVP consideration if for nothing else, because it's not like the AD carry pool is probably the most stacked role in the whole LJL. So.
Yep.
Okay, so just for the record, what's that? So my PC setup is super janky right now. Okay,
go check his
Twitter.
Twitter.
To the point where,
by the way,
my keyboard is literally like hanging off the edge here. So what that means is that I just put my phone on top of my keyboard, just down there. I put my arm down, it just catapulted it off. It's fine. We're good. Phone's okay. But it's a bit rough. Okay, cool. But yeah, in terms of like hammering on the Udapon thing, I think Udapon is always. I think he's a player which, when you're talking about MVPs, I think Udapon is always going to be in that discussion. I think that this almost plays against some of the logic we were using earlier in terms of like saying in terms of value brings to the team. We talked about like how Apperman technically could have been very valuable, even though he's more constrained in play style because like. He was very good at bringing that value to the table, even though he wasn't as much as a holistically good player as some other top laners.
Yes.
I think that someone like Honey and someone like Sol can... Maybe not Sol, actually. He's better on the utility front. But someone like Honey, you know he's going to play the hyper carry stuff, and you don't always get a chance to like delve into their playstyle so much, right? But that still kind of works towards the value, right? Because it's the value they're bringing to the team. And you kind of like sometimes ignore what's outside of the curtain there, unless it really constrains their draft.
You know what you brought them in for initially.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
You're not...
I would say actually this works into Udapon's favor because he's just so flexible. He played top lane this split, and yeah, they lost those games. But like the fact,
he won one, lost one, so he still won a game up there.
Sure, that's crazy. Yeah. But like you know, they lost one of those games versus Rascal and blah blah blah. But like you look at someone like Udapon, and his flexibility is just. There are very few players which can do what Udapon does, and I think that because of his unique value in that sense. He's a very strong candidate for MVP. I know that we didn't bring him up in like the first 3 names or whatever, but Udapon is always on the radar. It's no disrespect to this player, like that he's not like in the first names that we bring up, but Udapon's always there.
There's something to say as well. Like sometimes this guy gets in seasons past, he's sometimes been demoted to the role player because Ebby and Arya
because he can
example,
in a way that other people can't. He just can
because those guys needed more resources and he could play without.
Yeah.
Them. But actually, what was really cool this season in particular has been he's actually been a high resource player when he needed to and done really well with it as well. That's the kind of difference. It's not just role playing. It's okay, well, here is my role. My role this time is hyper carry smash lane. Let's go. And like the fact you can go from like really high resource to very low economy is incredibly hard to do. And part of that's veterancy. Like the guy's played through every meta under the sun at this point. But part of it's also just being really good.
I'll be honest, I think if there is an award or certificate of something that the Japanese government can give Utapon, they should absolutely honor this man, because the fact is he is just a gamer through and
the
through.
gamer award.
The gamer legit, award. Like if there was like an Hall of Fame for gaming or something, or just like League of Legends Hall of Fame, Utapon is probably the first Japanese player that should be inducted. He is the longest standing professional Japanese player. He has rarely ever missed anything. He has played since he was like 16 or 17 professionally, and he's 25 now. Like the guy is actually cracked, and he got player of the series in a finals. And when they won, he didn't die because he was that critical of a piece to the side of DFM. Like, there are just so many things. And by the way, when we started saying to people, like all the way back in 2020 or in 2021, when we got our feet a little bit wet with the LJL, but we told people for the first time when they first meet us, oh, we cover the LJL. People would always go, that's that region with Utapon, right?
Utapon, yeah. In fact, I see. So, so this is a fun aside. So back in 2020, so a little bit of story time. So I remember doing Newell with for my second split, and this is where actually I first met Melvin Issel. So Melvin Issel obviously did a lot of casting for his last split. Sadly, didn't really have as much time to cast with this split. He's doing a really great job over at Dexerto, doing a lot of analysis with them, and that's really cool for them. But going back to this, this is where I first met Melvin Issel after doing like the UK university scene. And he won a MasterCard raffle thing, and that was to do a caster workshop with Roscoe. So he invited everyone that was on Newell that split. So there's me and myself, and then myself and I, and Melvin Issel and a few others. Right, yeah.
That's his ego involved.
Yeah, and very kindly invited us, and I was like, okay, cool, this should be really cool. And so I mentioned that I was doing a fan broadcast for Roscoe. I was like, how's Utapon doing? Is he still the best XYZ
top laner? She thought he was a top laner because, of course, she started casting. We're doing similar things to we did.
I remember someone who's doing the PCS English cast last year, like the PCS like official LoL Pacific broadcast. Ibris was similar. It was like, I remember when he was the best Ryze in the region too, and top lane. Like, yeah, just people know who this guy is if they have a history with like minor region League of Legends, if they have a history with like the real old gods of the league, and Utapon is actually one of them. Yeah, it's from a minor region, but there's a point where you start putting some real respect on his name, and that carries weight, actually. It really does.
And I think to end us out, we should use the point that Sam put us so perfectly with. AD Carry might have been the most stacked role in our region, and he's doing this. Alex.
Okay, so this is one last name. Let's do one last name. And this one, which I think that really deserves a shout out, kind of from last split too. But sometimes it's overshadowed because the ADC role is so stacked, and because one of them's on their team. Because I'm not going to talk about Sol. Talk about Secret actually. Secret is a player which I'm not saying he's been snubbed by us for a bit, but like every time I talk to people who talk about Pro League of Legends, are pro players themselves, and talk about the LJL. They're like, oh, Rascal Jester, that's Secret's team, right? So I was talking to Corporal. Corporal hopped into my stream once when I was doing some VOD review. I was like, man, but Secret's so good. I'm like, yeah, you know what he is? Secret's really good. And while Sol was such an incredible player last split, and this split as well, but often kind of steals the thunder a little bit of Secret because AD carries have been so important, have been so stacked. Secret is one of these rare players that again brings that X factor to a team. And I feel like Secret's X factor is being able to just, no matter how ahead you are in a game, he can find a random pick before you set up for a fight. So we saw this last split a lot with like the Callista and stuff, but sometimes you're just rotating towards a dragon or towards a herald, and Secret just catches you. And in the LGL, which is a very, not to be too vague about terminology, but it's a very structured region, right? We play around conventional timers, herald spawn, dragon spawn, first 3 waves, level 6s, like very specific
crashing
points
on
in
mid
power.
tower.
Whereas if you want to see the opposite of this, it's VCS, right? Where VCS plays off of conventional timers and make sure you don't, because you're fighting so often, you don't have the actual cooldowns to play around the conventional timers, which really messes with people's understanding of the game. And this is kind of like, and the halfway house is someone like Secret, right? Where he understands that the conventional timer is coming up in terms of like, you need to reset now to do X, Y, Z. You'll probably be coming through these paths. That's like the first level of it. But it's like, okay, well, how do I set up a minute before this to get into a position to then catch you on the conventional timer? And he's really, really good at punishing that kind of thing. And for me, I think that's where his real X factor lies. Not that lots of teams can't do that in their own way, but I think Secret, that's his real specialty.
He's very
and
good.
I think that, you know, he's done so much work over the last year and a half in LJL that he's worth putting a name into the hat.
And I do think that, again, we had a few very good supports this season. Obviously, Harp as well turned up and did some really flashy stuff and looked very good with Udapon. All that. I think ND had a pretty good split as well. But for me, Secret was my MVP, was my all-pro first spot for support. He was the guy I put up there. Because I
actually can't remember mine, you know.
And I thought, and part of why that is because of what Al was talking about. I know, like Joshi, for example, when last summer in the finals, when it was Rascal Jester versus DFM, he basically said, "Look, Secret will catch you in rotation every time." Alex just said it there as well. Like, there's so many pro players, so many analysts who follow this guy said, "Look, sometimes you don't notice it." But if you're looking why Sol and Secret are so good as a duo, it's because they're really good as a duo, and Secret is really damn smart about the game. And being a consistent X factor, as I was saying, I think he's a very valid throw in for the MVP, even if he is a bit of a dark horse, I suspect.
I think that's a fantastic way to look at it. And quite frankly, in my eyes, I think he is the best player on the side of the Rascal Jesters, especially the split.
It's him or Sol, one of the two for me. Yeah.
And the thing about Rascal Jester is that they're not really about individual star power. It's about actually how they... It's about more of the, like... the way I define Rascal Jester is more about, like, how they play as a 5-man unit. Like, they're very cohesive. Their team fighting's very strong. They know how to team fight as a 5-person unit. They know how to, like, approach and retreat from objectives very well. And that's not necessarily something you can pin on one player, which I feel is kind of sad for, like, the 5 players involved, because they're all really, really good. But like, there's an X factor between them, which is more valuable.
Exactly. I mean, if you were going to add put a superstar stage on that team, it would be Sol and Secret. That they are the.
It would be.
Yeah, they are the aces in the hole in my mind.
I feel like the team would benefit if they had at least one more kind of topside player, because I feel like having an all-star bot lane is great, but like you need something extra. And I think that's what the team missed. But honestly, I mean, I think in all credit, that like Secret is probably. Out of the two, I think he is probably the player that was snubbed.
He's really good.
Probably deserved far more praise this whole split than he got.
When Rascal, I think people were down on him after the start of the split didn't look particularly.
When Sol and Secret didn't really start off in the first round.
The
first round kind of Rascal Jester wasn't great.
And I think at that point, I think it took a little while for potentially some of our newer casters.
It was very similar
who come in and said, their first time casting the league, and they went, "What? These guys are supposed to be the superstars?" But look at like Sangchu. Look, this guy's popping off, and then we've got Hybrid who's turning up, and then we've got Honey and Udapon, and like it took a little while for the Rascal Jester's rise to kind of really catch people on the radar again.
And even the Veigar, like, the Rise is one thing, the Veigar's the other. I mean, crazy,
very
really.
Good. Very good.
Look, great song, Rise. I really like it. It's probably one of my favorite ones, but it's not my favorite.
Ambition, like when Ambition still streams, and obviously he's like the main character.
This is a great story.
So when he makes a good play on his stream, like the chat goes, "Rise, Rise!" And when he makes just complete inting material out of himself and just dies horribly, go, "Rice, Rice!"
Oh.
Because apparently the joke was that he was really boring, so he was like Bold Rice. So basically his chat.
Brutal.
I think he's got emotes for both now or something. So he
I love Ambition so much. I love Ambition.
Here's the secret, guys. If you end up with this kind of thing thrown against you, you just have to buy into it.
Oh, you have
to. Lexi just zoomed in. I was like, you have to own it.
I can do that too. Hi.
Hi. Hello, I have both my hands free. Look at that. Oh, magic. How am I holding it up? No one will know.
I'm not going to do
Don't check behind the curtain.
All right, come on.
With that said, though, I think it's appropriate, though, gentlemen, that we start saying that is our core 6. Yes. I think there are a few other names we could absolutely talk about. But I think they're the main big names. Now, I know I put Honey up first, but I honestly think Honey doesn't deserve it. I love Honey, but I think we perfectly... Actually, I think, Alex, you perfectly put that when you called me out He only plays hyper carry still.
I mean,
does it really well.
Kinda does.
Specifically in Honey's case,
Yeah,
I
but
feel like
that's
it wasn't as much as an issue, and I feel like, I mean, when you look at like game 3 of the Juggernaut match when he goes towards the Samira and stuff, and like, okay, cool, whatever. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a fault of Honey that he only plays them. I feel like his team needs him to play them.
Yes, but he also couldn't step up when his team really kind of needed
If there was
him
like
to be.
Zyra or nothing really in the finals, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
So I don't think he. I'm going to rescind the Honey vote.
okay. So
And
like
It's
I'm-
like
a
an honorable
nomination,
mention.
but yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
An honorable mention.
Anybody else we feel like we can prune out early?
Sam, do you want to like chime in on Honey first?
Yeah, I think Lexi covered most of it there. Like he's been really, really good. But for me, he's probably like third. You know what I mean?
think
Maybe
that's-
fourth.
Yeah,
That's
like
fair.
I'd put it this way:
Quite.
everyone who's like not
Yeah.
making it from this point, again, it's like a strong honorable
Yeah.
mention. We've given our arguments for
Okay.
them, and again, this
I-
is like
yeah.
just one view on the LJL, a fairly well informed one, but it's one view alone. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and we all
think-
know I've been calling Honey like one of my
Yeah,
favorite players
he's
since we started
he's been
doing
really
this stuff,
phenomenal,
so,
and he
like,
was worth
Yeah.
he was worth nominating. I think for me as well, I would probably take Secret out.
Yeah,
Well, it
I'd agree. I
hurts
mean, like I said,
to
there's the X factor
agree.
there, and I think that I think that Steel is a great player, a truly great player. I don't think
I'm
he's
talking
been. I
Secret,
don't
yeah.
think he's been far enough ahead of the other LGL supports to.
No.
Wait, I heard Secret.
That's what I heard. Secret. Al
See-
said Steel accidentally.
Oh, sorry, I meant Secret. Sorry, supports.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
So
oh,
what
I
happened
was
was I'm
about to-
looking at a post-it with all the names, and I'm like,
I
anyway,
wrote them
yeah,
down on the podcast doc, by the way. If you want to check
Secret.
it on
Yeah, no, I have them there, but like I can't really see my second screen very well, so
okay,
my
fine,
microphone's
that's
in the
fine.
way. But yeah, I
Okay.
think Secret again.
Okay,
He has an
that's
X factor. I think there's a load of really cool stuff. Deserves the shout out. He's not actually massively far ahead of Harp, and I think also NT had a great playoff series to playoffs run.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of
would-
like actual value above his competition, not quite there for me to give him like real MVP runner.
That's fair. I
Okay.
think, yeah. No, I agree.
Who,
Alex,
who do you want to cut out at this point?
you got to prune one
So
more
we still
name out.
have Ebby, Jet, Steel, Utapon.
Yeah.
I'm not
All
cutting Ebby or
DFM,
Jet. So it's between.
Except for one.
So the thing is that like I'm not cutting Ebby or Jet at this point. So it has
Okay.
to be Steel or Utapon.
Good luck, mate.
No, I'm actually going to go with Utapon. Actually, but this is
Ooh.
more because of a positive fact on Steel. Because one thing which I've this is what I posit, right? You don't have to agree with it because at the end of the day, we have to agree.
I'm
on
sure I
this, right?
do.
But the thing for me is that the LGL is not a good early game region. It's just not.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
I
No,
mean, you have
can't-
Hachimetra on Volley Bear is as good as it gets. And that can be pretty good. Sometimes Once really pops off too, but he's as much as like to coin flip the other way in the same way. Steel is
God,
the
that's depressing.
only early game threat in the entire damn region.
Oh, once on
like-
Lee Sin will invade.
Yeah, and I think Once, but then he does also coin flip as well,
I am
right? But like,
digging deep for early
Yeah.
games.
but I do really think that Steel is like the one consistent early game threat in the entire damn region. You know, when he's on Poppy, he's flash ganking loads of lanes. He can first pick the Poppy and do that shit. Hecarim, he'll take E level 3 instead of power farming and go invade lanes and go really impact lanes as well. And I feel like in terms of like the landscape of the region, Steel brings a level of like early playmaking which other junglers don't have. And to me, that is incredibly valuable. So while I
Okay.
do think that Utapon has, again, all the things that we talked about there, this unique factor in terms of like the landscape, the fabric of the LGL makes Steel really stand out for me. So I have to keep him in. So Utapon has to be cut out.
Okay.
Make your arguments.
We'll cut one, Al. We'll cut one, Lexi.
Well, no, I thought we were agreeing on it.
Yeah.
I have to agree.
Yeah, so like the thing is, I think that's fair. I think for me it was between Steel and Utapon as who's a cut.
It was between those two for me.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, lads. I think we can just cut them both.
Let's get rid of it. Yeah.
Let's get rid of
I
both.
think we
Okay.
can. I think we can
So
cut
between
both
Ebby
of
and
them.
Jet.
We love them both. Oh god, I could gush for hours. We might
Yeah.
one day do that, but
it's between Ebby
this
and
is
Jet.
not that day.
An
Maybe
ode
Okay.
to Steel, an ode to Utapon.
I think,
Alright.
you know what, lads? If I may,
Go.
if and when these players retire, it's real wet if for for Utapon, I feel, at this point.
Yeah,
he's
keep going, lad.
Keep going, mate, till you're 55. I'd love to see it. When Utapon does, maybe we should do an episode just honoring and thank you.
Yeah,
Utapon.
I think that would be very appropriate. That'd be very appropriate.
I think he's a player that deserves it. But yeah, let's just cut them both and let's just bring it down, lads. To Jet versus Ebby. Who's gonna take it? Initialise. You go first on which way you're swinging. I'm gonna throw this to you.
Okay, for me, it's probably Ebby.
Okay.
And I think that's because he managed to hit both sides of my criteria, or both sides of the possible criteria. So for me, as I said, I think he is also the #1 All-Pro top laner, and is also still the most valuable part of DFM, and was just by far and away the best player in his role in the whole damn region. DFM could not play the way they did without Ebby. When you can flex Tryndamere and Renekton between him and Yaharong, and then play Gwen and Camille and Fiora and Darius and Ermal and Gnar and Akali and solo kill on all of them and crush on all of them and play, the set's still available there, and you can play, like that kind of flexibility is incredibly impressive. And then on top of that, have just phenomenal stats, and then on top of that, still be like
most
winning,
solo kills in the region and everything else. And most solo kills in minor region as well. So
yeah, and when games haven't always gone well, the split push threat from Ebby's always been a legitimate terror. Like on whatever he's been on, it's been pretty impressive to watch. And I think that for me is why it edges him over. Is it's like, okay, so you were also on the winningest team. You were probably a large part of the reason why they were winning, and you're just the best player in your role by a long way. Like there's little else to say. He's just very good on a lot of metrics.
All right, you know where I'm gonna go with this one, Alex?
Yeah,
Sell me Jet. Do it. All right, I think that says that Ebby is our overall MVP.
Okay, hang on. Let me
go on, try.
This is my thought process. Because I think that Jet did some incredible things in the finals and in the semifinals, and a lot of the regular split in terms of having individual picks which can take over a game, which you have to ban out. The Echo, the LeBlanc, the Silas, whatever you name it, right? A handful of superpower picks which he will crush anyone in lane with, and then also transfer that lane advantage into a win. And I thought, crazy. Wow, this is awesome. He's beating out DFM's mid laner. He is, probably best in his role. And I thought, okay, just now, why do I think this is special? And is this something which Ebby can't do? And I'm like, Ebby has Tryndamere. Ebby has Urgot. Ebby has Gnar. Ebby has this whole list of champions you can pull out in any opportunity. I'm like, hang on. Isn't Ebby doing exactly the same thing in top lane? I think the only reason, not the only reason, but I think the reason why I valued Jet so highly is because I didn't expect it. Ebby, I thought, would do this. He's outperformed what I thought he would do, but he still beats everyone in lane. He still has a handful of champions, which is infinitely take over the game in whatever kind of scenario. He still is one of the best, if not the best carry player in the entire region when he has gold and has a lead. I think the reason why Jet was on the radar for me is because I didn't expect him to. Ebby just does it. And I think for me, kind of taking that into account, I'm like, Ebby continues to have that value. You can't take that away. He's just done it for so long, it just kind of makes your brain a little bit numb to it. So for me, I take that into account, and Ebby is still it for me.
He didn't even have a bad first round Robin. I just had to double check it. His first round Robin was actually really good.
The Tryndamere.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it brings me much pleasure to award Ebby, the Shrimp King himself, our overall LJL officially unofficial MVP award.
Yeah!
Ebby! Woo!
Yeah! Great stuff.
All right, so that player that we've just gushed about and basically said, we're sending him to MSI.
Yes.
We feel really good about this right now, may I just add. Also, random side note that just popped into my head that I just want to call out, Paz actually has improved.
Yes.
Yeah, he has. Because I think,
I mean, it helps when you're playing with once. But...
It really does, yeah. Thank God once isn't in Elo Hell anymore.
Yeah.
He's doing
No, and I
his
think
job,
I think that Paz had a much better split. Well, I think as a whole the LJL's just improved. Okay, that's a good point. Do you think there's a role which is
Let's do that.
downgraded in the LJL this split? Maybe jungle. Maybe jungle's the one thing. But even then, Wands has stepped up, so maybe that
Yeah, I mean, like, once
softens the blow
Swamp,
of like
Steel. Yeah, I mean, probably is jungle, isn't it?
But like
It's
every other
still
role, I think is
wants
increased in skill. I think when you have
Yeah.
like Yaharong
Hatchemet-
and Jet coming in, you've got all of the new
Even
80 carries.
Dice been pretty good. Yeah.
Yep. I think
Yeah,
actually every role besides jungle is improved at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to summer split because we've definitely known that historically, a lot of players that had lulls in the spring split normally improve in the summer split.
Yeah, that's typical over the world. Yeah,
it is absolutely. So I think a few players like Rainer and Nemo, we could see huge glow ups between spring and summer, and that's where if we get like Axis Nemo again on CGA, I'm like,
so.
man, hybrid
Blank?
Nemo bot lane. Oh my god, click hooks, they just always land, they never miss. But as it stands, gentlemen, we're sending DFM to MSI. What are our current expectations? Now, Initialise has put a few notes here that I'm going to just read out for everybody, right? Last year at Worlds and MSI, DFM did very well. See the last games against Cloud9 and Damwon Kia as examples of how well they did. And obviously they were first in the play-in section, going 5-1, beating Cloud9, obviously, and then in that rematch. And Cloud9 won't be at MSI, so we can't have great Crabber memes. So
when I say no, we don't get a continuation of the deadliest catch, which is just Crabber.
Yeah,
we'll just
that's
have
it.
to beat.
The nets are empty.
We'll just have to stomp whoever they send.
Well,
from
in
LCS.
fairness, there's some Vengeance against 100 Thieves we could take for
Yes.
groups. So I'll take that as
That'd be
an
very
Oh,
cool.
I'll take that.
And again, that's Ebby versus Someday, which should be really cool.
Someday we'll have that.
But we are setting them there. So, gentlemen, I first want to talk about what are your personal expectations for MSI Nymaera? What are you expecting from this DFM roster? How far will they go?
So, if we kind of take into account, because I think there was actually just a question in Twitch chat as well in terms of like compare DFM from 2021 to 2022 MSI, right? And you think, so let's think about how well they did last time, and then use that to maybe compare and contrast how they could do this time, right? Because last year, for those of you that weren't following DFM back then, or just kind of saw a couple of our games but don't really dig into the story, last year, Aria was brought into the DFM organization as a superstar mid laner, but he was Korean, and that meant that they would have, if they had their intended lineup, they would have had 3 Koreans on the roster. Obviously, that's not allowed. So they were waiting until summer for Steel to get residency to allow them to get everyone kind of on the same roster. So to allow for this, their coach stepped in to support. So Kazu replaced Gang for that split for that event. And he was just like, only played a handful of champions, which were all hyper-engaged champions.
He only played Rel, remember?
It was like Rel, Gragas, Alistair, and that was basically it. He played like but I think so. He played those really, really well, and obviously he was a coach. He understood a lot about the game plan and stuff, but you could tell that impacted the team in terms of the laning phase and not really being able to play through bot lane. And now we've seen, obviously, that Yutuan absolutely can be played through bot lane. So that's an extra weapon that they have in their arsenal. And then you've got Harp, who is kind of on the opposite end of the scale in terms of Kazi was so inconsistent. He would have like crazy games where you'd find all the engages or sometimes make the game losing mistake. Harp is very consistent. He rarely makes mistakes. He's the kind of player which is very hard to get unforced errors out of, even forced errors, right? So I think that compared to MSI, just on that metric alone, DFM are looking stronger than they were at this time last year. Compared to Worlds, maybe a different story altogether, but you have top and you have jungle who are probably having their best splits ever. Yaharong, who's come in and been absolutely stellar in the mid lane too, and bot lane, which, as we said, have actually technically upgraded because of the situation there. So I think in terms of DFM didn't make it out of the group stage last time, but they were like 1 or 2 wins away. I compare that to this year. My expectations because of that, and because of how I consider LJL as a region upgrading as a whole, and DFM upgrading as a whole, I would expect DFM to make the Rumble stage. And I think, actually, that is, I'm not going to say likely, but I think that's on the cards regardless of the group that they draw, because they have to be a pool 2 team, right, to hop over them. Because
No.
and if you consider, because well, they would have to, because you have a pool 1, pool 2, which would be NA, PCS, VCS.
If we get group A, we don't necessarily have to.
No, that's not true, because it has to be the there's still 2.
It'll be
so
a
you
first
have
seed and a 3rd seed and 4th seed.
No, pool 2 is still there. It's a pool 4 seed, which is gone, because that is the LCL, which won't be there. So you're still going to have first, second, third. And then a pool 4 is going to be gone from somewhere.
Team. I thought this is me thinking. I'm bullshitting, ladies and gentlemen, so I can be corrected here. I was on the impression they were bringing a pool 2 team down to pool 3.
That wouldn't be the case. You're still going to, because the team which left is the LCL, right? And the LCL is a pool 4 team, not a pool 2 team. So it's not like last year it was VCS, which is a pool 2 team that left, and you have to rearrange. So you're still going to have LEC, LCK, LPL in the pool 1. You're going to have NA. You can have VCS, PCS in pool 2. And then I would assume, regardless of how it works out, LJL will be below that. And to make it into the Rumble stage, they need to.
You're going to have to beat somebody.
You have to basically be better across the entire group stage against.
But you just named 3 regions we're already better than, so I don't know what the issue is here.
Well, that's
kind of it, right?
What I'm saying is that even if there's
a
a team which we have a bad stylistic matchup against, or if NA actually come out on a really good team and stuff like that, I think that LJL are really gunning for that Rumble stage. I think, group draw obviously comes into it, but I think that they're really gunning for the Rumble stage, and I think they're likely to make it.
We should at least be a competitor, right? Like, I won't stand here and tell you we are favorites to come in second or first out of a group, but I would at least expect us to be a genuine threat. And coming in with the right prep, with the right teams on the right day, we are at the very least a dark horse. And, to add into that, as Alex has said, look, considering the situation, I think the team's in a better space than it used to be. Add on top of that, I think actually a little bit more valuable international experience in the sense of, okay, here is how we as a team prove we are an elite team and can win internationally, rather than just turning up and getting floored. I think you can see that the preparation and how they're playing, there's a level of that kind of, they have the experience of winning and knowing what it takes to get out of a difficult situation. Exactly. And going out on top. That is a great thing to bring into a tournament like this. And I think against, if we draw a PCS or an NA team that plays slowly, like honestly, if it's Team Liquid, they're great players, but they play slow. Like you could punish that.
That is a really good point. That's something that I do want to talk about more in depth. So because, we already mentioned this before and how I thought Steel was very valuable in the region because he's the one person that really does make things happen in the early game. It's still not massively aggressive in the early game, which is why when I look at a team, so we look at the pool 1 teams which have already qualified, right, in terms of T1 and in terms of G2. I look at G2, I'm like, oh man, if we draw G2, it's kind of rough, actually, because they are very versatile. They can play around anywhere on the map, which means that it's not like DFM can kind of scout out what's going to happen and then play accordingly to it. Like they're very hard to predict, unpredictable, and they're very aggressive early. So that kind of hits up against maybe some weaknesses which DFM might have. I think if they're against unpredictable, aggressive early game teams, they could get rocked when they're of that quality. So I think that if we draw G2, that might get a bit awkward. I think T1, they're just very good. We don't want
T1.
They're very good. So I think you're looking at 2 of the pool 3 teams and like, shit, that's kind of rough. So maybe we lack some of the upset potential we had last year when we had, Damwon, who were a bit more inconsistent, especially compared to T1 as an LCK first seed. And you look at like C9 from then, who are also quite a flawed team.
Let's not go too deep down this rabbit hole, because I would love to talk about this when we actually know every single team coming to MSI.
But in terms of the expectations, on the whole, wide scope, if DFM get drawn, or rather, I think in the entire tournament, if DFM come up against very clinically aggressive, unpredictable early game teams, they could find some issues because LJL just doesn't play that, and they're not used to it. And I think that if it is a high enough quality of opposition to do that, they might find some stumbling blocks there. I don't think that we're going to have to worry about that from tier 3, tier 4 teams. But when you look to like maybe a good tier 2 or tier 1 team doing that, we'll see.
I am looking forward to smashing VCS, PCS and seeing, we deserve the extra. Yes, we deserve it. And I think that's an interesting place because obviously, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a common subject and topic for us going into MSI. Yeah. I think my camera has. Oh no, I'm still back. when we saw this, we'll obviously do our probably the draw when that happens. We'll probably do a live view or something similar to what we've done over the last year or two with our content. We'll do interactions and we'll do live reactions and stuff because people like that, and also it's good content for us. So we can also give our opinion on the draws as they happen and everything. I think outside. I think we're pretty doomed versus a lot of tier 1 regions. I think tier 1 regions carry that kind of weight as they should. They are to be respected. But the tier 2 regions, one of them we haven't seen for several years. One of them capitulated all over the fucking place. Well, their second.
I mean, there was other things going on involving selling your soul for publicly available insta-titties for bad betting issues.
And one of them is NA.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always a chance, boys.
No, I don't think it's... So, I mean, compared to last year where we're like, look, we're probably going to snag a win or two because teams are going to underestimate us and DFM are a good team. Now, I think it's not snagging wins. I think that they're going to be competing with the best teams in the tournament. I think that, that like, I think in terms of tier 1s, I don't think they're going to be like... I mean, I guess thinking about the last Worlds, we were blown out pretty much versus T1, right, in both matchups there. But like, you look at the other teams kind of here.
Yeah, but we got the solo Bolo versus Faker.
All that shit, right? So I do think that DFM are coming in as a just beyond the dark horse for Rumble stage. I think that they are a formidable team. I think in terms of they can be considered a second pool, another pool 2 team, even though they're not in pool 2. And that makes it very inherently volatile group stage. It's really good for entertainment, and I hope that we come out on top, obviously. So,
yeah, well, I think we probably are the strongest of the pool 3 teams, effectively, or the pool 4.
Yeah, I mean, TCL has kind of struggled to make a super team after that Supermassive roster with GBM and the rest of it. And then outside of that, it's been a bit wishy-washy, right?
Let's quickly talk about the tier system because I think it's
yes.
Worth
let's quickly address that. We talked
about
it a bit. Yeah.
Quick mention. So pretty much for the whole history, from my understanding, I might be wrong when it went to international wildcard tournaments. I don't know if there were tiers there or what the fuck any of that was really. I just watched it casually. But the LJL has historically been a tier 4 region. What does that mean? It means we're one of the worst regions. Okay, that's just what it means. To typically go up throughout a tier, to jump from tier 4 to tier 3 and then tier 3 to tier 2. No one's done that to my knowledge, but to do that, you have to have results. You need to start doing...
That might have been when they changed the system in the first place.
Ooh,
so,
yeah.
I think they changed the system, and thus when they changed the system, VCS changed. Is rather what it was.
Right. Okay, that makes.
Yeah. So this changed effectively when it was. Oh god, I'm trying to remember if it changed when the LMS.
When International Wildcard went.
I think
LMS
it was
broke.
Yeah,
LMS
because LMS was another pool like major region, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, but then kind of like because that got broken down.
They were a one-team major
LMS
region,
used to have.
but...
LMS had. I think it used to have like one.
Wolves.
No, I think it had like it did have 3 teams, right? It had 3 teams LMS, right? Yeah. And then one of those teams went to one of those seeds went to VCS, so it had 2 and 2. I believe that was the case. Maybe no, maybe that wasn't the case actually.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
That. Or
anyway, though, to actually jump up through a tier, you have to have results, and there is the expectation from all of us here that the LJL is now a tier 3 region. We won't know for sure until the draw happens, unless my 2 co-hosts here have insider information. But to my understanding, we are a tier 3 region on the assumption that we did things that no other region did except for the LCO. Which, by the way, shout out to Corporal and Order for making it. Fucking huge. Love to see it.
Hell yeah, let's go, Corporal.
Corporal comes here, gets on the teams, has to do the grind on the 2 teams he did it on, because boy, did he have to fucking grind on those 2 teams. Comes back and then wins it. Oh, I love this kid. He's so fucking cracked, man. And those finals, by the way, if you haven't watched it, go watch the finals. Absolute banger, best of 5. Really, really worth watching. But LCO probably also has some weight to also be a tier 3 region, which historically has also been a tier 4 region. So I think we're going to be seeing a bit of a changing of the guard now in the tiers coming into this year, at least. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, given how So LJL finished third in MSI groups, which is better than that's at least on par with TCL, who were pool 3, right? And that's better than CBLL, LLA. Things like OCE made groups.
But they were in the tier 3 one and they beat Unicorns of Love, who
I don't know how it works with like Riot's metrics and stuff, but then Worlds, obviously, we made groups.
As a first seed.
As a first seed, right? I don't know whether that actually, because I think it's actually,
Again,
I think it's basically final placing of the tournament, right? So we ended up getting the groups. That was our final placing, which was better than all of the other minor regions. Now, most recent events do have, well, the last 3 events tend to hold more weight. I think, because I'm trying to remember, let me, you know what, let me just quickly go check over what the hell happened with them.
2020 Worlds was V3 Esports who shut
V3 did a horrible job.
Yeah, that was very bad. Very, very bad.
21, yeah, 2020, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't actually know exactly what's yeah.
Well, the thing is, at least we'll lose the bad V3 performance after this one. If you see what I mean?
Yes, after this one, we actually look a lot better. Like our whole resume looks way better.
The outlier is gone.
Oh, so this is the other thing, right? Like, so because the LCL aren't I think we might have overtaken Turkey, maybe. No, but they meant they're not. Look, okay. Either way, it's not very clear cut in terms of where the pool system lands for wildcards. Now, I think that DFM did very well last year. I think they did better than their placement suggests. They had a very hard group in both groups, actually. You know, had fucking Down 1 and C9 in MSI, and then they had like the hardest group they could have drawn for, as a pool in terms of like T1 EDG, so it's like a semi-finalist and the final and the winner, and then also 100 Thieves, who were not a bad team.
No, and we almost beat a few of them.
So put it this way, it might take another good international performance for the LJL to be bumped up a tier. I'm not exactly, I haven't ran the numbers or whatever.
So Nymaera.
Yes.
Initialise.
Yes.
Sam, is he just talking about us making Rumble?
I think he might.
I think we might do that. I think that might help us become a higher tier region, potentially. We'll see. And the thing is, though, like when it comes to like the seeding stuff like that too, means that you are going to be in an easier group as well, because you're going to have one less like tier 3 team to a tier 4 team or whatever it is, right? Because so it means that because you are a higher seed, effectively, you are going to have an easier time maintaining that seed and maintaining those international performances. So we'll hopefully see some of the fruits of our long-term efforts in the LJL pay off.
Hopefully.
I mean, we legit came at the best time with 2020 from the sounds of things.
We did a pretty good job.
The more and more it goes on, like V3.
We had the timing down pat, yeah.
Yeah, it was all planned. We knew the future.
2020, get to see the Blank Empyrean combo as well.
2020 vision, see? The 2020 vision. That's what it is.
Sadly, you don't have that, mate, though, because you do have to wear glasses for driving purposes, though. What's your vision like?
I do with the glasses.
Mine's good. Mine's spring 2020 vision.
Oh, mine's spring 2020. Very good. Very good. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going over and doing some questions. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask us questions, you can join our Discord server. We have a little section in our server where you can ask us questions. Or you can just tweet at us at the hashtag LJL podcast, or you can just tweet at us at the account or at our accounts, LJLOU or MaskedSwan, Initialise, Nymaera. If you say podcast question, I'm sure in the tweet we'll get it put into the document so we know to talk about it here and now. All right? There we go.
Sounds good.
With that said, if anyone's in Twitch chat, as we do record these live, you can ask questions as well. And it looks like we've already got a few coming in. Snoo Kappa has asked us in the Twitch chat, what are your opinions on the power level of PSG talent? And I think this also links in to another question, actually, that Snoo Kappa has asked us in our Discord server. God, they're everywhere. About a team, a group, potentially of Group A, Group of Death sort of thing. But PSG talent, let's talk about that angle first. I've watched bits of the PCS. I need to go back and watch the BFI, the final. So I haven't done that. Have either of you guys done that?
I was watched it half asleep, so I remember bits and pieces. I think it was another five game series. And yeah. So my take on PSG talent is, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, they still have unified Kaiwing, who are very, very good. Now it's not like,
Unified
a lot of people will
Kaiwing,
be like,
yeah.
oh, but that's not Doggo. I mean, PSG were
Hanabi's not
beating
bad
out
either.
Doggo's teams with Unified because Unified's really good. He plays a different style. He's less about the individual carry, right? He's more a cerebral AD carry. He's better at kind of like rotating around the map and
Team
picking up
fights,
gold
yeah.
and kind of more macro sense of things. And he's a very, he's not necessarily going to be the person who's flashing forward in a fellows like Doggo does, but he's a very consistent AD carry and he's very high level. And Kaiwing is one of the best players in all the minor regions. Like Kaiwing is incredible. I guess like what Steel Levy and Utapon is to us, Kaiwing is kind of to the PCS at this point.
Yep.
I do think they've downgraded fairly heavily in mid jungle, and I do think that
agree.
PSG Talon are a slower team than they once were. And I feel like that is going to hurt them. I think that they are still very deservedly a tier 2 powerhouse. I think that they will be considerable threat. I actually think back to last Worlds when they were against like RNG in the group stage, and the first game they played against them, they arguably should have won that game.
They should have.
There was
Like
some,
we should have beat down one Kia.
Yeah, PSG is still going to be a strong team. I think that they might have downgraded enough, and DFM will have upgraded enough again for it to be a very competitive matchup. I think that PSG DFM would be a really fun matchup. They also scrim each other. Most of the VCS, PCS, LJL teams do scrim each other, but I think that PSG Talon are they're coming in a little lower than they were last year, and I think that they're going to be contended by us from an LJL perspective. Because that's
this is always the problem, though, is that forever Flash Wolves had the same problem where they would turn up to international tournament and have a mare one, and people go, oh, I don't know how good they are. And they turn up to the next one and smash, like absolutely crush kids, and then kind of like fall off in the quarters or whatever in a 5-game series. And I feel that PSG Talon are in a not dissimilar situation where they are forever a nightmare to rate because people either just overrate them or really underrate them. And it is part of the problem with being a good team to a great team that is often in a difficult position because they're not a pool 1 seed, right? So you end up in a situation where sometimes you get drawn into a group with, top esports and T1 or something stupid like that at Worlds. And it's like, well, did you really expect to beat these guys? I think there's probably 3 teams in the whole world that kid. So that's some of the issue. So I do think PSG Talon are a good team. I think they probably play slow enough that DFM will feel happy at least prepping for them. And I think they can be prepped for, which is something that, some of the teams I might not say is a bit more difficult to do, say T1 or G2, where they are a lot more.
They're just very good.
They have a few more tricks to pull out the hat. And so I think PSG Talon are a good team, but they're not without their flaws. And it's difficult to rate them until I see them again internationally because it's the old Flash Wolves problem. And maybe that's a cop out. Maybe
so
out there, but that's
my take on PSG Talon, power level wise, keep it related back to Snookapper's question. I'm gonna say they are better than 2 out of the 3 teams, in my opinion, still left in the LCS. There is only one team I think is actually better than them. And that is Team Liquid. I believe Team Liquid are the better team. But I believe PSG Talon could probably beat 100 Thieves and EG. That is my hot take.
So
I also have the hot take that I think TL is also the best team in LCS, so that's partly why.
So I do agree with what Sam said before, that TL are a slow team. I also think that PSG Talon are not a fast team. I think that they kind of butt heads on those strengths.
Mid-game team, yeah.
I think they butt heads on those strengths. Yeah, I feel like TL would kind of get away with it versus PSG. I think that 100 Thieves would beat PSG. I think that 100 Thieves is the better NA team. I think that they again that they're a little more deliberate about the way they don't tend to just like randomly they don't tend to like randomly fall into wins and skirmishes because they're better players. They tend to like actually like this is the winning play, make the winning play, the winning play has been made.
I would argue that's just Closer kind of being the crack jungler and maybe top 5 jungler in the world at the moment. Like that.
some days really good. Some days really good.
Some days also having an MVP caliber performance. The fact that Tenacity hasn't come in once is just a whole other thing we could do.
I would love to see Core JJ versus Kyring though. I mean, that wouldn't happen in the group stage because they're going to be in pool 2, so we wouldn't see that. But either way, it's not like. But I do feel like
both teams have to make Rumble.
I mean, I think that if EG make it through to like if they actually do win, that would be a massive upset. And I think that they might get exploited in a lot of ways internationally. But I think TL 100 Thieves, there are some matchup things we can talk about there. But
I think ultimately where we're coming to with PSG Talent though is we highly respect the team, but we haven't done enough research on them to be fully confident in a power level.
Half watching best of fives while I'm like very asleep
that's fair.
Like, 8 o'clock.
But we
ask us again about 2 weeks.
Yeah, when we've got more MSI prep done. But I actually think there's a lot of respect that should be given to PSG Talent because every time people underrate them, it's hilarious when they actually perform above those expectations, but not above the highest lofts.
I just don't think they're as strong as last year, and I think that they're still strong.
I agree with that.
They're still going to be like I thought that they were pool 2, kind of pushing pool 1 teams last year. Now I think they're like more within the pool 2 bracket.
Agreed. Our next question that I actually kind of want to tie in because Snookapper asked our previous one. I kind of want to do a nice little bow because it's PSG Talent again.
Oh.
They have given us a group, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
They have asked us if Group A was this hypothetical 3 teams. RNG, PSG Talent, and Detonation Focus Me. Regardless of the possibility of this group, I want to know more than anything else, how do the 3 of us rate their chances? And I'm going to take first on this one. I think that's fair. I need to take first on something here. I think we need to really have our game plan and research down against PSG Talent. Because if we want to be RNG, a lot of shit needs to go right. And it's a best of 1. We get a few of them, so we get to try and figure something out. And honestly, I could see DFM spiking once. Like, by the way, I don't think we're going to be doing a UOL Pentanet. Like, I actually think both PSG Talent and Detonation Focus Me could take
good teams.
1 game from RNG. I'm not going to say more than 1 game. That's fucking crackpot territory. And my co-host here will absolutely flame me for it. Rightly so. But 1 game.
Yeah, I think RNG are less consistent than they were last year. I'll say they've looked a lot better in playoffs. And I'd say that before Ashin and Orcs come to Berlin next week and take my head off my shoulders. But the thing with RNG
I'm still sad V5 aren't there, but...
Right, yeah, well,
they still have a plan today, so...
Cars from Rich did not look good today.
No.
Cars from Rich did not look good today. Those 2 players are going to feel a bit upset about their performance against top esports today. Anyway, there is, if it is RNG, Bin is phenomenal, but he has been Xiaohu light in a lot of ways from last year, and honestly more inconsistent. And there is a world where he just destroys Epi. There really is. There is also a world where Bin puts himself in his own namesake and just ints it. And I can't guarantee which one it is. Similar sort of issue with someone like Wei, who sometimes is very, very smart and sometimes just doesn't seem to know what the hell he's doing.
Wei was incredible last time, is that right?
Yeah, he was. But then you look at his performances at Worlds, he was a lot more mediocre. You look at him and regionally, he's been quite exploitable. He and Jie have some very up and down performances. And even in the playoffs, it was like games where he was 7 deaths down and into the load of kills, and then he pulls off the perfect stopwatch bait to buy a few seconds for his team to catch up. That's all it was. It was literally to buy team seconds to catch up, and they win the team fight because of that. And it's like those kind of clutch moments make him quite hard to rate sometimes. All of this is to say, I think RNG are a better team than DFM, but they are inconsistent enough that DFM could take a game.
I think we can just about make it out with the skin of our teeth. It's that kind of.
I think the way you do it is you have it like something like, I don't know, 70, 20, 10 in terms of, or 17, 15, 10 or whatever in order of, with 5% whatever for like RNG, PSG, DFM, where DFM are very much a dark horse in that group. But I think that's also under the assumption RNG come in the form I've seen them in playoffs. Not their regular season. Not sure what's going on here.
Okay.
All right, Alex.
I was gonna do something really funny because I thought I was gonna react like Geralt to Rivia, just but actually I don't think it's that bad. I think of the groups you can get when you can, I think in this instance, I actually wonder if LPL first seed is a better matchup because they are more Okay, it depends. It really, really depends because I think T1 is pretty much unbeatable for DFM. I don't think you can punch up like that. We're not beating T1.
That's not a fun
They're two good
matchup.
individual players. In lane, they are nigh impervious. You're not beating them. Not realistically. If that were to win, like I'm not expecting an upset there. Against Damwon, against C9 last year, I could see it happening. Against T1, not really. Against G2, it's dangerous. I think that again, they're very good early. I think that if they're on the form that they showed in the semis and the finals, it's a hard ask. It's not undoable. It's more like a 70-30 to G2, right? It's heavily favored towards them. With an inconsistent LPL first seed, given the way that LPL's been playing, I mean, hell, if you go watch the broadcast this morning, Dagda was saying, like, look, if we're playing like this, just hand the trophy to T1. You know, then the LPL analysts are not happy with how the LPL is playing because there are inconsistencies, because of the level of play. There may be a world where we punch up there. So I think
you can punish top
that's not awful
in the LPL.
And then in terms of pool 2, I think PSG are a slow enough team for DFM to be happily going towards their team fighting stage where they're really, really strong and potentially play around their early game. What else, right? I think that's not a bad group draw from that sense. I've been pretty vocal in our Discord server, which you should totally join, by the way. It's a link below our stream. In the fact that because Garm is not going from VCS, who is incredibly dominant, incredibly fast
if we
pace.
get them, it's free.
I think with Gum, it's like I think that would be that would be a fun matchup between them DFM. We know that they scrim. Again, they scrim between.
They know each other quite well. Yeah,
they know each other quite well. They talked about that last year. Even with that, you know, VCS hasn't been to an international event for the last 2 years. It's been 3 years since they've been to a international event, or 2.5 rather. They haven't had that on-stage international presence for the last couple of years. They weren't scrimming around the international events either. I mean, when they knew that they weren't attending Worlds last year, they stopped scrimming. So they'll have some international scrims, but it's not quite the same as being part of an evolving tournament like meta, which is very, very important. I think that when you have those kind of factors involved, VCS is already going to be lower power level because they haven't been in international competition and all of the X factors which come with that. And then you're sending a second seed, which is a distant second seed to Gum, who are so dominant in either Saigon Buffalo or I forget the other team. I think that VCS second seed is probably the one you want to draw.
I would say VCS second seed. I'm going to get some heat for this, and I'm going to say it, though. Worse than Sengoku Gaming and Rascal Jester.
I think, you know what? That's a spicy take, but I don't think it's unreasonable because Sengoku and Rascal Jester are really good.
The context for that is we think so. This is the thing, right?
Second.
The distance between Gum and the rest of the region, DFM are like still like fairly far ahead of the rest of their region, but the other teams are still fucking good. We know that, right? We think that. So this is less of a conversation about actually we think that second seed VCS is bad. It's just like we think that our second seeds are really good.
Yeah.
So you probably could get some heat from that, but yeah.
Part of it as well will. Yeah, part of it is trying to work out it's kind of judged, like obviously there is a big gap between GAM and the second seed, but the question is that just because GAM are so much better and the second seed is still at a kind of equivalency to LJL, or is GAM a little bit lower and that's dropping them down to, like, it's difficult to kind of work out because of that gap there as to exactly how good they are. And hopefully we'll get to see a little bit at MSI. I mean, obviously it's going to be a real shame that GAM aren't going because of Asian game stuff, but that's something to work with.
Fantastic. I mean, PCS. I think though we've got a decent chance. We'll have to see. I hope we don't get Group A, just because it'd be nice just to be in.
See more games because it's a double round robin for the 3-team group now. So
yeah, which I think personally, in my opinion, I think that had to happen. But also, I think this kind. Okay, I'm gonna have a mini rant here.
Sure, go for it. Go for it.
People need to understand. You can turn the stream off. You don't have to watch the game if you don't want to watch. No one's forcing you. Oh, you're a content creator and you want to farm the free karma? Oh, you pensioner, you rowing chica. Oh, cry me a fucking river. Don't watch the game if you don't like the regions. Stop flaming them just because those players and those fans get to appreciate their team.
Particularly when it comes to like stuff like,
Right.
you know, when you have a
Right.
passionate fan base like the LJL, CB LOL is one of the most passionate fan bases in League
LLA
World League
as
of
well.
Legends.
Big time.
LLA,
Yeah,
similarly
LLA.
up there. You know, like
Hugely so.
when you consider the
VCS.
amount of like not very well represented fan bases which are present in play-ins and in the group stage of MSI and blah blah blah. Like there is immense value in what play-ins brings. Actually, I in some ways prefer play-in stage of events in this case to the main group stage. I think there's more volatility because teams have to prep for so many more regions. I think that they have more storylines. I think that there's more condensed history because you have more regions. I love that stage of the event. Sometimes the gameplay isn't as good. Yeah, I mean that's the nature of it because you're getting weaker teams into there, but it doesn't mean they have to mean less. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Lexi. That's a good rant.
Oh, and by the way, let's be real. Most major regions still have teams worse than what top teams that go to MSI and Worlds, even in the play-in stage. So if people want to cry about it, start crying about your 7-seed LCK team. Yes, I know that's KT roster. I'm fully aware of what I'm doing here. But why the fuck are we flaming them? Crazy. I know exactly what I'm doing here, gentlemen. I want to take it over though to I believe what's going to be our final question because we do need to wrap it up.
Yes, we do. At some point.
We've been doing some. We've had a lot of tangents this one.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Make it a quick one. Let's go.
Hina has asked us.
Oh, Hina.
Guys, did you have time to read over the 12.8 changes first?
Yes.
Yes, all three of us. Very good. If yes, fantastic. Hot takes for MSI meta predictions, not just Poppy, OP, DFM win, bracket MSI.
I'll take this one. I know Al's got some other thoughts.
Yes.
Go for a hot take.
I think the HP nerfs, particularly say the likes of Jinx, are actually pretty impactful because 50 HP at level 1 could really hurt if certain other AD carries start getting picked up early on. Because for things like Caitlyn, Varus, things that can really hurt you the early levels, that's going to stick a lot harder now. So that I think might see Jinx actually drop in priority a little bit, maybe.
It's also she doesn't gain that health back later. It's not like it's just gone. It's just gone.
Well, she had ridiculous base stats for an AD carry. 610 base HP is very high for an AD carry. So for me, the extension of that, because this is one of my big thoughts, is that between the Jinx HP nerfs and because for those of you that don't understand, like the specifics of why Jinx is picked in terms of like the real nitty gritty interactions and shit. Jinx controls waves before level 6. The first 3 waves you often want to stack up to then either dive, reset, or roam. Or get vision. There's like multiple things you do. When the enemy is trapped under turret, you get to do a whole load of stuff, and you got priority. Right?
Depends
Jinx
on your
has
support
power
as well,
by getting options by controlling the first 3 waves, and generally controlling the wave before level 6. You can also do the opposite of pushing. You can just choose not to and have the wave under your turret as well. Just let them do that, right? But you can't be denied farming because you have the extra range, right? Jinx is fine in the early game. That is not the case if you have Tristana Rel jumping on your level 2 and killing you. And that's going to be the case now if they do pick that and you don't have like a good support matchup. And if you are blue side and you're trying to first pick Jinx and they leave support until last pick, there's a good chance they pick a kill lane into you.
Well,
I think
like with the new
Jinx,
Nymaera tech,
much
you could do
less
Nymaera Rel,
to play
right?
around in early. Yes, Nymaera Rel is a good point, right? So I think between that and having Xayah having much less reliable late game damage with the Q nerfs coming through internal lethality build, those are 2 of your big long range AD carries now taken off the table. You are now left with basically a Phelios MF, which are not always blindable all the time. I think that there's a chance we see the long range AD carry meta turning into a utility meta where we have Ezreal, Ashe coming through.
Jhin just got huge buffs.
Jhin,
maybe Lucian
buffs,
Nami, as I said, Trist Rel might come through. I think there's a chance that we start seeing the long-range AD carry meta that we've seen for the entirety of the split fall apart at MSI if teams are doing the R&D, the research and development right now. So I think that's the big take. I think it might not be quite enough to break that dam just yet, but there is a chance that we just see a complete AD carry meta shift, and that changes the entire meta of that we've seen the entire split in MSI. And
I'll throw out another one as well. It's like I'll throw out another one. Mordekaiser's movement speed buffs.
I think they're huge.
They are,
laning,
but especially because he gets % movement speed from. Is it passive Al? I forget which one it's from.
When you activate your passive, you get movement speed.
Yeah, exactly. So, and obviously, part of the way you deal with Mordekaiser in the mid game is being able to kite him out in the death realm.
Oh, you've died. You've died.
Sam, you've died.
If he is now suddenly 20% fat, I got taken to the death realm.
You did.
Come to Brazil.
As you were saying, they get taken into the death realm. You get the 20% movement speed and...
Oh, it's not 20%. It's just like when you activated your passive, you used to get like 3%. Now it goes up to 3, 6, then 9% per like level of your ult.
At level 11. It's level 11, which is actually relevant also for laning phase. It also means it could enable to a degree jungle Mordekaiser, I think, to a point. I'm less sold on jungle.
You'd be quicker through the jungle, possibly.
No, just don't play more jungle.
But top side.
Please don't play more jungle. Please don't play more jungle.
My hot take is we're going to see Sejuani actually have a high presence.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty big.
That's fair.
And I think it's going to be in flex roles. I think you can legit flex her.
You can roll it top. You can
and mid and jungle.
I don't know about that.
I think it's a certain
I don't know about that
mid-matchups.
so much. But like, I mean,
do it.
but either way, I think there are enough micro changes to see teams that really put in the development effort to really change the meta. I think it's a large patch. I think that even though it, like on the Twitter said, oh, we're not trying to put in too many changes for MSI, I think it might have done anyway. I think particularly the ones to the long range AD carries, because he's like the cream of the crop holding this style together, we might see a change in like the entire flavor.
Ezreal's going to be ulting twice, 3 times.
Twice in a fight, like game fights. You're absolutely right.
It's so gross, the cooldown nerf. Like the cooldown buff. Like, why? It was fine with all of the CDR he already builds. I know it's not called CDR, but just like it's stupid. So stupid. Ah, pain. Thank God we've got Utapon going, who's a great Ezreal player. So
he plays everything. Yeah.
Really
but no, I think in terms of like hot takes from the patch, I think that there are quite a lot of changes. I think you're right. Sejuani's definitely another one because if it still kind of comes back to poke meta and stuff like that, then having your passive up potentially twice more often if you avoid poke long enough is actually really big when you're kind of doing the standoff before you engage. That's pretty big. Pretty big.
The other thing is you could play mages in bot lane. I think the Xerath buff.
Oh, you could already. Just teams didn't want to. It's stupid.
I mean, I think you could. I think Xerath looks disgusting at the moment, but I think you can only play in bot, which is a weird thing. But regardless, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the podcast. Thank you, everybody.
We're done.
Sam, if they're on YouTube, what would I like you to do?
Watch the video like 5 times. Like back to back, then comment, subscribe, hit the alert button, share it with your friends, show your parents, sit them down and make them watch
Refresh
it.
every 30 seconds, so it gives you the
situation with them. Just show it to your friends instead. In fact, do that as well. So really, each and every one of you should have at least got like 15 views between yourself and your close associates in some way or another.
I'm doing my part.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sort out.
You can also rate us 5 stars on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Also, you can give us a thumbs up on Spotify to say that you like this podcast and you would like to keep seeing this podcast and podcasts like it. Makes things very good. Yes, thumbs up like Ebby. Nymaera.
Hello.
Where are people going to be able to find you over this next week? And so, are you going to doing anything in special?
In my house. I'm going to be in my house. Don't find me in my house. That'll be very disturbing. What am I doing? I am, in fact, casting E-Masters tomorrow. I'm also casting 2 days after that with Sam. I'm casting with Sam. We're going to be back together doing that, and that's going to be very fun. Outside of that, I might do a stream also. We will see. I have a setup. It is on a really shit desk. It's not actually a desk. It's a chest of drawers. It's very bad, but I might still do that anyway. Outside of that, I'm still on my Twitter. That's my app. That's me. Yep, you can go find me there.
Follow.
And outside of that,
give me those follows.
I'll be around.
He'll be around. Samuel, Initialise.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Where can people find you and all of that beautiful stuff that you
They
do?
can find me under the tag Initialise, but replace the L with a 1 because Initialise as a name is often taken. So come find me on Twitter and Instagram and other places. And
I'm going to tell you something you need to go and grab the handle for somewhere else afterwards. But after we're off the air, I'm not going to do that on air. That's a bad idea.
Fine. Yeah, okay, fine.
But what else are you doing over this week, mate? Sorry.
I'm casting with Alex. I've got my birthday next Wednesday, so that'll be happening then. So I'll be turning in a new age, new dawn, it's a new day, and I'm feeling, I don't know, 27. That's how old I'll be. Took me a second.
I mean,
yeah, that's probably most of it. There's some cat.
Oh, might be part of a D&D one-shot at some point with Archer, host of the NLC.
I'll be prepping.
We'll see whether that happens. What time frame that'll happen. But yeah, that'll happen at some point.
Sure.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah,
fantastic. Well, myself.
What about you, Lexi?
I had my birthday over this last week.
Happy birthday! Woo!
Over this week.
Woo!
What the heck am I doing this week? Well, my partner's still on holiday this week, so I'm probably just going to be relaxing and spending time with her.
Cool.
I might do some content-y stuff. I keep telling myself I'm going to do content. I then do a bunch of work on the content, and then I leave it, and then I start doing something else. If I actually finish the project half the time, just like half of the time, I'd have a lot of content out there. Content overload for all of you lovely people out there. But for the time being, I do want to try and put a video out. I do plan on having my hosting and casting reel out there. So if you are looking out for a host or a color caster that isn't Nymaera, because the man's working a lot at the moment, so I'm free.
I'm crying because I'm working.
Hit me up. My DMs are open, so let me know. And if you'd like to see the early versions of those reels, I can send that over. But other than that, I might make a video, or I might just watch a bunch of anime.
I was doing that today.
No.
Cool.
Spot. I was about to say that.
Great.
So
good. I read the manga for that. I was reading the manga for that last year. Oh, I caught up the other day actually. See, this guy, he comes in late to the party and finishes it in like 2 days. I've been here sweating it out for like 6 months reading this shit. It's like when everyone discovered Horror Mirror and like, I read this shit like okay, whatever. I'm actually oh no, I've become the thing I hated. I'm a manga elitist. I'm a manga elitist.
And on that bombshell, thank you so much, everybody, for listening and or watching. You can find this podcast on all audio major streaming platforms. But with that said, for myself, MaskedSwan, Initialise, and Nymaera, thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you all
Read the manga
very soon. Read your fucking manga.